Hello, this is Dale Matthews, and I'm joined by Mike Jones, and I want to make it clear I have nothing against loose women.
Wow. I have no idea what that reference is about, but okay.
Good. Well, my point is that I don't smoke or drink. It's not that I can't. I'm just not interested in doing that. It's not like I never have smoked or drank anything in my life, and I'm pretty sure that God is not going to punish me because I don't eat fish on Friday. It being Friday, this advertisement brought to you by the National Fish Council. So it used to be that if you were a Catholic and you didn't eat fish on Friday, why, you were going straight to hell. Really? Well, that's
Yes.
no longer the. Well, what happened to all those people that went to hell? Now are they going to get out? No, never.
No, wait, whoa. Is this a news flash? Did they repeal that law somehow?
I don't think that you're required to do that anymore. I don't think so. Don't
Oh,
never hear anything about it from our Catholic friends. Don't know. Anyway, my point is, I also have nothing against loose women. I mean, if you want to smoke, drink, hang around loose women, the only problem is if they've got a screw loose, and then you've got a bigger problem. No,
yes.
my point is that what we try to do here is not just tell you the tiny details of the story, which we're going to do today, but we also try to form it into a pattern. Well, what do all these tiny little details mean? Where do they all fit together? And one of the places that's in the news, nationally in the news right now, is Cave Junction. Because as it turns out, as we mentioned to you yesterday when we played one of the stories from, I think it was Channel 12, yes, they were talking about how the Cave Junction City Council, it's really only a couple of key members of the Cave Junction City Council, have decided that they're going to buck up against this vote that they lost on a statewide basis,
Mhm.
and they're not going to allow marijuana to be legal in Cave Junction. Well,
Yeah.
no, what is their reasoning? And I'm going to posit a theory or
Mm.
deposit a theory, if you like. That doesn't
Yes.
sound as nice.
No, we don't need to know about your deposits here.
Okay, right. And that is, I think that they believe that things are going to change in Cave Junction. You think? And that it's going to change in a way that's not so positive to the people who are currently in charge of everything in Cave Junction, or like to believe that they are.
Mm.
One of the people who used to be a mayor in Cave Junction was Don Moore. And I talked to him about something we're going to mention with the sheriff in a roll-in segment that we have today. That's Tech Talk for we're going to play a tape for you. It's
Yeah.
not really a tape either, but oh, whatever. Um, and I talked to
I,
Don Moore.
I have that cart ready.
Oh, good cart. Yes. So it's a little inside talk here. So one of the things about marijuana that and about intoxication and about beer and such things that I talked to Don Moore about when he was the mayor of Cave Junction, as I said, I went through your community for the Labor Day parade, and I noticed a lot of people drinking beer along the parade
Mm.
route. Well, he had said, yeah, we need to crack down on miscreants, although he didn't use that word. We need to crack down on the dregs of our society
Yeah,
that,
like with
that
nightsticks and stuff.
that will hang around on our main street drinking beer. Well,
Yeah.
okay. And I said, but
Yeah,
I
and in
saw,
a couple of days they'll be smoking doobs.
yes, if they're going to drink beer in public because it's illegal to do so. But how much are
It's
you going
all
to
same to
crack
me.
down? And I said, because you don't crack down during Labor Day when people are on the side. And this was so ironic. Here's what he literally said to me. To me, you'll understand why. He said, well, those people who are on the parade route during the Labor Day parade, they could be members of the Rotary Club.
Oh, so wait a minute. If you're a member of, I didn't realize that. I will carry my Rotary card from here on out. I didn't know it was a get out of jail free card.
Well, apparently so. So one of the things that we said, and this is all about how it all fits into a context. It's not just the individual things, but why are they doing this? Because you can watch the TV news and they'll catch up with something we talked about a week ago or a month ago, but it's not explaining why is this all happening and where does it fit. And we can only speculate because that's what we do. We can tell you the individual pieces, but then we try to say, well, here's the pattern that we think that it's forming. That's one of the values of the show. And who else is analyzing the news? Analyzing the news, you just look at the first part of that and you understand where we fit into the whole stream of consciousness.
Oh, no. Speak for yourself there, mister.
That's just a joke for those who are paying special attention. So everybody's got one. And
yes.
So one of the things we ask the sheriff is, when things begin to change around here because of the new laws, how are you going to enforce some of these laws? And you'll see that his answer fits in pretty clearly to what I've been describing as a 56-mile-an-hour rule. It is true that if you drive 56 miles an hour, the police can literally stop you for breaking the law. They can, if that's the society in which you want to live. Most of the time, they're not going to bother with such things. But if they don't like you, and that has been known to happen from time to time.
Sure.
Especially with somebody like me and occasionally Mike and others who question authority.
And Dale, he is a traffic scofflaw, let me tell you. So watch out for this guy. If you're out patrolling the streets, this guy is a menace to society.
Right. But see, they can stop any of us anytime they wish to. And I have a little problem with this. We can stop you anytime we want to, or capricious application of the law, because if you say something they don't like, I don't mean just the police, but if you say something that the commissioners don't like, well, they can make up a rule, or they can apply a rule that's never been actually applied before. Or, as happened with Art Harvey, he's the clerk, he was using what I call the 56-mile-an-hour rule on, say, well, you wrote down the wrong thing, and then you wrote in the right thing, but you didn't initial it, and then turn it over, and it's Thursday, and you've got to do, what? Well, we ended up with a result from that election where the amount of rejections of signatures was like this, and it suddenly went way up like this for the recall of Cheryl Walker. All these rejections, and then back down, and it's back down to normal again. Well, what happened during that period?
Subjectivity, I believe.
I believe that you're right, sir. So now I'm asking the sheriff, we're asking the sheriff, what are the rules really going to be? Not like you're going to be smoking marijuana and driving around, but what are the rules? And how will they be applied? And are you going to enforce them? Here's what the sheriff had to say to us.
Perhaps not during your tenure, but with past sheriffs, they spent a certain percentage of time
certainly
busting people for pot.
Absolutely.
So what percentage would you guess is going to be spared for your time and effort in pursuing pot arrests?
I don't have time for that. So the voice of the people has spoken. They want it legal. It's legal. Here we go. I have time for murders. I have time for assaults. I have time for domestic violence. These are people crimes. That's what I have time for.
Now, are you going to be involved in the enforcement of criteria when it comes to what is and what is not legal in terms of private grows or whatever? Let's say a guy has 5 plants and he's only allowed 4 plants or something like that. Are the sheriff going to be? I mean, what's the line there? Is there?
Well, potentially we could if we come across something that's outside the law,
flagrantly,
that's just blatant and flagrant and that type of thing. But again, I have to prioritize what I go to, and it is what it is. So marijuana is now legal.
One of the things about Cave Junction is that they have a rule against drinking beer in public in Cave Junction, and it won't be the Grants Pass City Police that would deal with that. Would be your contract deputy out in IV. So, but they waived that rule, or at least seemed to do it during the Labor Day parade. There's people along the side. You can see them. They're drinking beer and having a wonderful time. And well, okay, we're going to let that go. So what happens if someone's on the side of the road and you're going by in a float and people are drinking beer? Yeah, well, and then you see they're smoking marijuana.
So much of law enforcement is you look at the totality of the circumstances. What's the situation? What's going on? We have, I guess the word I'm looking for is we have options. We have things we can do, things we can't do. And so you just have to look at the totality of the situation. Is somebody going to be hurt over the situation? Is something it's so egregious to the public that they can't do that? Well, it happens. I mean, I was out in Wolf Creek at the Wolf Creek parade, and a bunch of people were drinking beer and walking down the side of the road and things like that. Well, I'm not going to stop in the middle of a parade, and hand some guy a ticket for drinking in public. We're just you got to take it as it comes.
So the same thing goes for marijuana?
It's situational. It's situational. So it depends. So it's hard for me to answer the question, totally truthful by saying, yes, I'm gonna do that every time, or no, I'm not gonna do that every time. It's situational.
An officer pulls over someone for what looks like slightly erratic driving.
Okay.
And then they notice something in the car where they hadn't originally been looking for that. And the thing that they notice is an open container of beer. It might be empty. It could be open and dry. And it's sitting right next to the person. Well, that person's in a bit of trouble. Let's suppose then instead they find that there is a marijuana cigarette, partially smoked or not smoked at all, sitting in that car. Is there any similarity between those two cases?
Well, you need reason. Yeah, there's both of them are at least, well, I don't say controlled substances. They're regulated substances now. So if you have a person with slightly erratic driving, you're looking at a possible DUI. So you have a reasonable suspicion that a crime has occurred. Therefore, you have reasonable suspicion that maybe the person's drinking or maybe the person's smoking the marijuana and driving. So you're going to conduct an investigation just like you would any other. It's highly likely a person like that might be subject to field sobriety tests, or at least asked to.
All right, let me just change the scenario a little bit. So you're not pulling somebody over because it's an old guy wearing a hat, although I have many times found that that's dangerous. Keep away from those people. But it's someone that has maybe changed lanes without what you can perceive to be the proper signals, something benign.
Okay.
And when you pull them over, there is an empty bottle of booze on the seat next to him. Okay. Not necessarily alcohol in his breath, but you're not supposed to have an open bottle, even if it's empty, sitting in a car. Well, what if you had just a plain old marijuana cigarette, or a marijuana cigarette that's partially smoked? Now, is that the same?
Well, it could be. See, you don't have all. I don't have all the facts there because I'm going to see about a million other things going on in there.
Yeah, but the law has recently passed. Have they amended laws to include a partially smoked joint in there as being the same as an open container?
Well, you're looking for impairment. I'm not looking for whether there's necessarily a marijuana cigarette or necessarily a bottle of beer or vodka.
No, well,
yes,
wait
but
a
if
minute.
there's a half-empty bottle of whiskey
Whether
on,
it's
on the
impaired or
passenger
not.
seat, you're going to bust them for open container, right?
Depends on half empty.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to get a citation for that.
So does the same thing apply in the
Half
world of
smoked
marijuana?
No, I don't think the rules establish that at this point
Okay, interesting.
that I'm aware of. No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we don't know what the rules are.
Yeah, we don't. That's an interesting thing, and you know what? There's going to have to be clarification on that. Certainly, you can look to probably Colorado and Washington to see where they're at on that sort of thing. Now, I seem to remember hearing that Colorado had been going after some changes to their DUI laws to include, something having to do with marijuana and the, sort of that open container question.
And how do you give somebody a sobriety test?
Yes, it's a difficult thing.
If you think they've been smoking marijuana. Remember when we took the trip through the jail? Dale and Mike go to jail. I know a lot of people applauded. Shut up. Okay, yes. And
what we didn't show you there was the cavity search. We didn't show you that.
Yeah. Well, Mike showed you his colonoscopy, but okay.
Yes.
So they had a sobriety test thing there, and I said, "Does this work on marijuana?" No, it doesn't.
Mm-mm.
So I guess you could have someone touch their. Well, I don't even know if I'm doing a good job, but
Yes.
there's all kinds of things you could do, but you're not going to be able to prove. Well,
Yeah.
we don't know. The point is,
Short
we
of a
don't.
blood test, and you know, from what I hear now, when it comes to DUI, at least it has been in the past in California, you had a choice. You could go breath, urine, or blood test to determine, you know, whether or not you're impaired. And so maybe they would take you to the hospital, have them draw some blood. That seems like a long way to go to get the, you know, to issue a citation.
Pulling something out of you like that? Ah, boy.
Well, it's listen, they've done it for years there in other states that I know of. I don't know what the rules are here because I'm not one of them.
That's the point. We don't know what the rules are. And I'm not saying that the sheriff needs to know every rule, but one would hope that if you were pulled over by somebody.
Oh, I'm sure he knows.
Yeah. Right. So so we also wanted to talk to you this evening about what happened at the Wednesday weekly business session and what happened on the Thursday administration workshop, because it's these little details that add up into a pattern that gives you an idea of what's actually happening, not just tiny little things. So one of the questions you might want to ask yourself when the commissioners got together and finally said yes to the supplementary budget is, why wasn't any funding at all for the sheriff with this money that just recently came in? Why? And that was not part of the roads funds. It was not something they anticipated. They didn't know it was coming. They can't say, well, we had already budgeted that for something, because they hadn't. And so now the question is, why couldn't that money go toward funding the sheriff? Now, Mike's got an additional detail for you about that.
Some new funds have come in, and I don't know, you know, when these arrived, or if they've arrived, or if it's just a notification that these funds are coming. But there's $640,000 coming in the form of a PILT payment, which is payment in lieu of taxes. In other words, the federal government owns or controls a large number of acres within the county that are not available for property taxation. And so they sometimes, not always, not as often as we'd like them to, pay us some money for that inconvenience.
Well,
and
one of the
so
things
$640,000.
We do know that the commissioners have not informed anybody about this. You may have noticed the last couple of weekly business sessions I said, when are you going to tell us about this? They haven't said anything about this money coming in. Okay, but one of the things we do know is they said many times, we put nothing into this budget unless we absolutely have the money to begin with. So what that tells you, kind of the opposite way, is this is money coming in that was not in this last budget, if they were telling us the truth, which is a good question in itself. So since this is new money that has not been in the budget, and I believe that the PILT payments in lieu of taxes, are not dedicated funds, then could they not spend these on their top priority, which would be what? Commissioner travel?
Yes.
A
Sheriff's
new bunch of
Department.
software?
Yeah, Sheriff's Department, and not limited to the roads either, because if it's payment in lieu of taxes, then it's the same as tax money, I would assume, which is you know, pretty much free for them to do what they want with. There are no school payments tied to that, because it's not a home where you know, they take out of property taxes your assessment, you know, payment for schools. Now, I don't know what they do with PILT, to be honest, but the press release date on that was yesterday, the 25th. So
now,
I don't know.
They've talked about PILT payments coming in. already. I mean, it's
Oh,
not
they
like
have.
they've never heard of this before, right? They talked about it, but it wasn't part of the budget. And now we found it's going to be $640,000. Okay, that's a significant amount. However, to listen to Cheryl talk about it, and Simon as well, and Keith has nothing to say because he's not awake. They have said, well, you know, we tried that before and nothing happened. It was a bridge to nowhere. That bridge to what they're talking about is it was not a bridge to new taxes.
Yes.
That's their bridge to nowhere. That's why nowhere is on the other side of that bridge for them, because it's not going to lead to people passing a levy.
Yep.
So now there is a related subject to this. I went to a meeting yesterday of Republican women. I'm not a Republican and I'm not a woman. You may not have noticed. And the speaker was saying, well, this guy's
at least not anymore.
But I have nothing against loose women, but none of them are Republicans. And so the speaker said, you know, this guy right here is doing it right. Well, that's nice to get some confirmation. So he was totally wrong. But at the time he was saying, this guy's totally right. You need to get more information out there about what you're doing. I think that's correct. And I'm happy to see them get more information out there. And I'm also happy to see the Sierra Club and the all kinds of goofy groups. Not that either one of them are totally goofy, not totally, but it's fine. I think everybody should know as much as they can about all the various alternatives. And I said to them afterwards, I said, you know, if we were using the funds that you pay in to Charter Cable for the Cable Television Access Fund, you could have a daily or a weekly or a monthly show about Republican women. Leave aside the fact that why do there need to be Republican men and Republican women in separate clubs? I don't understand that. But you could have your own show. I mean, if you have a Rose
hyphenation.
Club, yes.
Hyphenation.
Well, if you have a Rose Club or you've got a Mike Smith fan club or whatever it is, what other club or whatever that you have, that's what public access funds are for. And you're paying for it. You have no choice. You must pay for it. So what happens to all that money that Charter Cable pays to the county? Well, almost all of it goes straight into their general fund to spend any way that they want. Woohoo! And to call it a fee to you, it's a tax. You're being taxed by Charter, who just jacks up the price and then gives the money to the county. But a certain portion of that is specific dedicated funds. We're just talking about that, specifically dedicated to nothing but. Now, why am I telling you this boring story? Because I have a penchant to do that. No. The reason why is, well, yes, but that's not the case this time. The reason is because you're just not used to seeing that. So you probably belong to some kind of group somewhere. The group's anonymous group, whatever group you belong to. And your group could be telling people about your good works in the community or whatever you wish to tell them about, because you'd have your own show.
Right.
You're already paying for it. Why don't you have it?
Yeah,
and for that fact, we've got the 4th of July coming up. Well, hello. Or we had Boatnik. You know, that Boatnik has never been on our cable television channel. Never been on her. Why not?
Yeah, that is weird.
And also, we've got high schools in this area. You know, Grants Pass High School, the University of Grants Pass High School, they have a dedicated channel that's supposed to be about their sports and their their mental athletes, and they misuse it and they screw around and they do illegal things and put it on the air and laugh about it and use bad language and all kinds of other things. They can do whatever they want to. But we've got 3 other schools. Would anybody like to see the football games of Hidden Valley High School? Well,
sure, absolutely.
No, you don't get a chance to see those. Why? Only the government.
But I want to see them.
No, only the government gets to appear on cable television. Now, our funds that we paid out, the PEG funds, public education government, supposed to be all 3. We only get the G part, but there's also P and E. Okay, public and education. We even bought this thing where you can put overhead. It's low technology. You just put something on there and it shows it. Well, they took that out of the room. Got to take that out of the room. Why? That's disruptive. And why is that disruptive? We paid for that.
Because they don't want it.
Yes.
What do I win?
So
Yes.
when the supplemental budget came up, people have just pretty much given up on the commissioners doing what we think is the right thing and helping fund the sheriff. No, that's not helping pass a levy, so we're not going to give him any money at all. See, we told you it was only about passing a levy. Some of you didn't believe us. And now we're turned out to be 100% correct, 1,000% correct, because they're not going to do it.
1,000% correct.
Yes. Well, using the mathematics of Arthur O'Hare, our finance director, yes, you can.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Or 1,000th of that money is available for the sheriff, and it's a bridge to nowhere.
Yes, anyway. Right. That's more likely. Yes.
So people didn't even bother mentioning that. But everybody that got up to talk about the supplemental budget, geez, I hope this isn't boring to you guys. Everybody that got up to speak about that talked about the PEG fund. Really?
Well, listen, even if you don't know what the PEG fund is, even if you don't care about public access television or whatever, you should be concerned when they're ripping you off. And this is just one of the many segments where they're ripping you off. And as I said in social media this morning, if you are not watching these people, then they are ripping you off. And the more you watch them, the less they're ripping you off. But if you decide that you're not going to watch them at all, then they're ripping you off big time.
So what was the stand that the Daily Courier took on this subject? They said that the use of this money, which is dedicated money, is to watch county government is a waste of time.
Yes. Well, it may well be, but that's not their decision to make, is it?
Well, see, isn't that funny that a medium, a so-called newspaper, would find that watching out over what the commissioners are doing is a waste of time? So don't watch it.
They're a mouthpiece, and that's where that's coming from.
They also said it was costing too much money when it was free. Okay, and I asked them, I said, why would you say it was costing too much money? Why didn't you ask any of the people that were doing it for free? Well, we were told that by the county. And he just printed it. Really? It makes my point entirely. It's like this thing with the pro-levy people who aren't showing up to try to get any money for the sheriff. We told you it wasn't about the sheriff's funding. No, yes it is. Well, it turns out, where are they? They're not out there asking for more funding for the sheriff. Even he was telling us, I don't know why the anti-levy people are, you don't know why? Because we weren't about taking money out of your hands to begin with.
Yeah, but I think that there's a certain number of people that are just brainwashed into thinking that there's only one way to fund the sheriff, and that's a levy. And if you don't pass a levy, then we're not going to have law enforcement, and you miscreants are going to be in control, and so we're going to go home and pout now.
It sure seems like that's what they're doing. They've got nothing to say about this subject now. Really? After hearing from you at every dang meeting, now you've got nothing to say?
Yep.
You said that it was the most important subject that there is, the government keeping us safe.
Well, I wonder if they'll come and advocate next week for that PILT money to go to the sheriff.
That's a really good question.
It is a really good question because, you're not robbing from Peter to pay Peter,
That's what the levy would have done, rob from Peter to pay Peter. Boy, am I tired of that analogy.
Yes,
apples and oranges. If you're not on the table, you're on part of the menu. A stitch in time saves 9.
Yes,
Shut up.
Other assorted phrases that don't make any sense.
Well, more people are asking for. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just wondering about the origin of a stitch in time saves 9.
Well, I imagine sometime in the 1800s when people used to stitch up their clothing, and if you stitch it at the right time, then the rip will stop. This rip is not stopping. The only people trying to stop the rip are the people that are telling you how they're ripping us off. Woo.
Yeah. Hey, nice one.
Yeah, well, the Daily Courier stands solidly against that. Wow, we've got to stop this information sharing ridiculous actions.
Yes.
They're another medium. Why would
Put a
one
stop to
medium be against another medium? Oh, I wonder why. Because they don't get to pass it through a filter, and they can't sell any advertisements.
Right, and they don't want any competition. They want to be the sole source, and they want to be the one source that tells you what to think about what's going on in Josephine County. That's all.
We used to have a print version of this show. Well, it was before the show started, but it was a print version of whatever you're seeing here, whatever it is that you're perceiving that you're seeing. Before Cheryl Walker told you that the mere fact that you're watching this is a tragedy in itself. And we had a deal, I mentioned this to you before, where we would put the newspapers, these are little free newspapers, and Safeway agreed they put it in every bag. Every bag. That was a lot of printing. And
That's
the
amazing.
Daily Courier guy was sent over to steal. I'm not making this up. They stole the newspapers. And I talked to the guy after a couple of times. I said, what are you doing? Well, you're competing with this. I said, we're free. There's no advertisements.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, wait a minute. Hey, if turnabout's fair play, that means I can go to every place where there's Daily Courier and steal all of those too? Is that cool?
No,
oh, no, wait a
because
minute.
we're
That's
the
not a
good
free
guys.
paper. Yes, it's not.
Daily Courier was trying to
That'd be
stop
theft.
you from and the whole thing was basically a transcript of what the commissioners had said. I mean, I had my little cat Jack on there, a little cartoon. He was about this size. When he got older, he got bigger, and he would make little wry comments, but. Come on, there was no advertising. It's a one-page front and back kind of thing. They were stealing. The Courier was stealing the newspaper and throwing them away.
Yeah,
I finally had to stop doing it because it was costing too much money to have them thrown away by the Courier. This is your Daily Courier. Why doesn't he like the Courier, Mike? Well, I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
It's not going through their filter. And you might actually hear things that are happening, and you can hear it in the words of the commissioners. And if they talk for 5 minutes, you get 5 minutes, not 30 seconds on the local TV show where they're talking over half of that. And you can hear what they're saying and see for yourself. Did she really say, did Keith Dick really call him that? Or is Larry Graves out at the airport really saying, I want to F you? Yeah.
Oh, Dale, stop using that profanity.
Oh, that's terrible. But we call it, this is what's happening. You're not going to find that in the Courier. And Joe, forget that. Okay, so another thing that happened at the weekly business session is they trotted out yet another organization that wants economic development funds from the county.
Sure.
So they can continue their great record of building up the county's economic development.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I brought up this thing about the North Valley Industrial Park and how it looks like that's all going to go to Grants Pass after we spent in county money and state money millions and millions of dollars.
Be nice to get a solid figure on that.
Yeah, well, there's never going to be a solid figure on that, buddy.
Really?
Not ever. No.
Why not?
Oh, no. Mm-mm.
Why not?
Not until these guys are gone and we sit down and do forensic accounting. We're never going to find out when they're in office. I mean, the answer to that is
no.
No, they're never going to tell us. No. And when we reveal stuff, they come sort of unglued. And as witness, with this thing about Larry Graves at the airport. And I said, when were you going to tell us that it looks as if this whole thing is going to revert to the city? Cheryl Walker came a little unglued about that. And she said, well, I've made it clear that it's only, now get this, I got to slow down just a little bit. It's only the little tiny bit of land, which is what, like 6 feet wide or something, that's underneath the water storage containers. Now, in this, not only does it sound unlikely, but in this, she's disagreeing with Keith Heck, believe it or not, with apparently with Simon Hare. She's disagreeing with county legal counsel, and she's disagreeing with the city. She's the only person that's saying this. And she tried to use that argument against Keith Heck. He said, you need to talk with legal counsel about this. Well, whatever works at the moment. I mean, if it sounds like she's right for 30 seconds, she's going to blurt that out at the meeting. And so, well, Mr. Matthews, you obviously haven't, and the other two are just sitting there like, nice day we're having, nice weather.
Yeah, I think there's probably an unspoken rule amongst them that if one of them is criticizing you, don't correct them.
Well, that's certainly possible, but generally they don't do that against each other. Every once in a while it comes out and you go, really? Oh, but Keith is telling her this. And he's not exactly known for his adroit scholarship, but he's saying, no, this is the case. And she tried to say, well, I think it's just that little tiny itsy bitsy stripe of land. What is it, like 12 feet long and 6 feet wide or something like that underneath this storage container? Does that sound logical to you? No. No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And then she goes into something about the urban growth boundary and the expansion of the urban growth boundary, which is not going to expand out to include something that's 6 feet wide by 12 feet long. No, it's going to be that whole area. So she's talking against herself anyway. That's the flavor of the weekly business session. Okay, each individual thing adds up into a pattern. She's got to have this this legacy of moving this forward, even if it's going to cost us another $1 million or $2. Because it just kind of makes her look good, I guess. She figures it must.
Well, not to mention the fact that there are crony contracts to be handed out with state money that have to do with that North Valley Industrial Park, and so
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Of course, we're not going to find out about that either. And boy, were they surprised when we revealed that both Cheryl and Simon Hare are involved in the hemp business in our area, after saying, well, they're using our county facilities to promote their private business. I don't think they like being exposed like that, Mike.
And I don't know if we mentioned this, but now what I heard on Wednesday was that they were planting hemp as fast as they could, and that particular day, something like 8,000 hemp plants were going to be planted, because that when they're finally told not to grow the hemp, they're going to get paid for the potential in every plant that is currently in the ground. This is all theoretical at this point. And that payment could be as high as $1,000 per plant. Now,
not $1,000 per plant. Probably closer to $1,800 or closer to $2,000 for the entire field.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And where are you getting that information?
That's directly from Peter Gendron, who is kind of the local authority on this kind of thing.
Okay, well that makes sense.
Now, Peter is especially concerned because his cannabis people, marijuana growers, are trying to form some kind of at least working relationship, which sounds good to me, with the hemp farmers so that they're not cutting each other's throats. And as he tells it, there's quite a bit of controversy up in Salem, and in these last couple of days that they're doing things, and that there are some legislators, there's always going to be some legislators who are upset specifically with Simon Hare and Cheryl Walker, because this sounds like they're doing an end run around the law, or trying to line their own pockets by using our county resources to influence Salem, and that they're kind of blowing this, and it's making it more difficult for them to come up with agreements up there, because as soon as somebody up in Salem hears about it, they go, oh, no, that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. So once again,
for that amount that you were talking about, then that doesn't make any sense, because
I can just tell you what I've been
it would
told
not pay off. There would be no point in doing it. You'd have more than that into planting the field.
Yeah. So all I can tell you is what this guy said and that guy said, but we're not getting straight answers from anybody. Now, occasionally what I'll try to do, if I see Simon Hare in the hallway, I'll say, well, we know that Jim Frick is involved, but where's Larry Osborne from your partner out, and funding your re-election campaign, and the guy that was...
so what's Simon been telling you on that?
He had nothing to say at all. But
Oh,
he easily could have
wow.
said,
No
no,
kidding. I
wait a
wonder
minute.
why.
But he could easily say, now, wait a minute, that's totally, he loves doing this. You're totally wrong about that, Larry Osborne, Dale. You just can't get the facts straight. Okay, well, it was kind of a trial balloon. He didn't have anything to say, and he didn't confirm or deny anything. And so all you can do to try to tease the information out of these guys is you say, well, I hear you're gay. Oh, no, I'm not. Or, or if they say nothing, or they just kind of give you a wry smile and then you kind of back off. I don't do that. I mean, my point is that you're going to try to get the information out of them in the way that you can through a freedom of information request or through kind of asking him a quick question. Oh, yes, that's true. Yeah, I was drunk driving. Oh, okay. Not gotcha journalism, but at least get him to say something before they have a chance to come up with all the reasons why everything that you say is completely wrong.
Sure.
I'm not going to mention it in public, except I just told you. But what I'm trying to do is
and everybody that's ever going to watch this video.
Oh yeah, right, and that's hundreds of thousands of people. But the point is that we do try to see if there's some way that we can find out what's happening, and we've been right so many times. You can tell it just by the way that Cheryl Walker reacts, if nothing else. How the heck did you find out about that? Our biggest mistake that I've ever made was when I heard that there was a chance that that DHS, Department of not Human Services,
Homeland Security,
Department of Homeland Security was going to be coming and establishing an office here in Grants Pass. Really? I thought, well, that's interesting news. And so is that true? And so I say, well, I don't know, but this is something that the commissioner said DHS is coming here. And so as it turns out, they did mean Health and Human Services, or whatever that stands for, Department of Human Services, that they were considering doing it. But I get this call from these guys at the Department of Homeland Security.
Oh, really?
Wow. But this is what happens when you lead a charmed life. They said, how did you find out that we were considering moving a Department of Homeland Security? And I said, well, I didn't say this, but I should have said just good journalism. It was a mistake. The whole thing was a mistake. They said DHS, and I thought, well, what does DHS mean today?
If you live near Dale, just understand that things may happen in the middle of the night. There may be a no-knock raid, and hopefully they don't kick your door down by accident.
No, but here was the wonderfulness of this. How did you find out? Well, we're not going to do it now because we try to keep a low profile, not making it up.
Right.
So it only came out of the fact that I made a terrible mistake.
And
I did say,
maybe they were going to be here to monitor all the crazy right-wing activity that apparently Cheryl is privy to.
I believe that you're 100% right about that, Mike.
Wow, really?
I believe that they are concerned about people who question government, who are anti-government, which they perceive to be a movement.
So were those people?
Yeah. Well, we can be sure that our broadcast, webcasts are being monitored, of course. But of course they're watching us, because anybody at all that's ever suggested, now you'll know this to be the truth, anyone at all that's ever suggested that the state of Jefferson should start up, that isn't beholden to Oregon or California, absolutely. Separatists?
Yeah, they're going to find themselves on a list somewhere. You know what? Right after 9/11, we took a couple of flights to, I can't even remember where we went, but it turns out that there was a Mike Jones on a no-fly list. Go figure. Mike Jones, it's like Ron Smith or Bill, whatever. Anyway, it's a common name. So one Mike Jones is every Mike Jones. And so for every leg of this trip, I'm on like a 1 hour hold where they do they examine me from head to toe and double and triple check my passport against their database and the whole 9 yards. It was really inconvenient.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize to you for the inconvenience, Mike.
Yes. Well, you didn't know me at the time, so
Yeah,
you couldn't
well,
have done
I
it.
still apologize. It's partly my fault. It's a part of all citizens. Um,
Oh, okay. All right.
uh, one other thing that
I demand compensation.
for
So
mental anguish,
yes. So when do I get that? When is your
right?
check in the mail?
So, and he's going to use that money for a sex change operation because that's how
Yes.
upset it made him. So,
Right.
one other thing that no, don't start that rumor. Enough of that's going around about Mike already. So,
Yes.
one other thing that they brought up, which I think is fairly important on the Thursday administration workshop, is J.J. Schofield came in, and also the finance director came in, and they were talking, of course, about hiring more people and
Naturally.
about fees, read fees as additional taxes. It just has a slightly shorter name instead of tax. It's fee. Oh no, that's exactly the same. Yeah, well, you get my point. And they now have the finance director coming in twice a year to talk about raising fees.
Mm-hmm.
Fees are going to come up, and Mike's going to bring us home here with what fees mean and how we got into this fix that we're in already, because we talked with Wally Hicks, and this was part of our examination of the charter. And they're going to announce fees, new fees, that 6 different departments want to add on, and how they'd love to streamline this process. And they're going to talk about this on Wednesday, which will be, I believe, the main public hearing on this, where you can come in and say what you think about this. Now, they're going to try to restrict your comments. You can only talk about, should there be a fee for a license for a gerbil or whatever,
Oh yes.
instead of
Nice.
talking about, should they be raising our fees? And here's what I would do if I was a commissioner, despite what the ruling said from the court. If departments come in and they want to raise fees, I would suggest as a commissioner that it should go to the people for a vote. But we don't have to do that anymore. We went to court against the people and won. Yeah, but that's not what the charter says, and I think we should obey the charter, even though you did win that bogus case. Tell them what
Well,
happened.
and listen, as long as you're going to go that distance, why not just go ahead and put on the ballot a repeal of what they passed back in 99 or 2000, which was this procedure by which fees they can come up with fees and well. What the people didn't know was that was an end run around what was in the charter that said that all fees, all fee increases, all new fees would have to be put to a vote of the people. Well, they obviously didn't like that because they couldn't unilaterally just raise fees. And so that would be my first step in the process. Go back and whatever was said there, get rid of that language so that it's not mucking up the process. And then I would go back and re-examine this thing that happened in 2006. But I believe that if you went back and vacated the previous thing that they put in there, that would take care of the 2006 ruling all by itself. I'm pretty sure.
Was there any doubt in your mind, Michael Jones, what it was that the voters actually wanted?
No, not really. But if I had to guess, I would say that what they put on the ballot late 90s, 2000, whenever it was, and you told me the other day, but my brain is like a block of Swiss cheese. I would have to say that was probably written in tortured language so that people wouldn't understand it.